the thing that works in our favor is that now there's enough governments that are pro Bitcoin that sort of a government which is kind of where Bitcoin is legal is perhaps going to be the most important division of the world by 2030. And, because I think the orange coin is the new blue jeans, the global symbol of, freedom and prosperity. And that's actually a really important thing because, what is that symbol? Because in the 80s, if you remember, the Soviets, they were attracted to, the blue jeans and the Coca-Cola and the better consumer experience in the US, but that was also something that was provided by the freedom. So there's a freedom and the prosperity, there's the values that underpin the valuations, basically. And the ideals that, underpin capitalism and free markets and fair trade and so on and so forth. Like, and so the free trade, you can also say fair trade, but now today, if the original champion of free markets and free speech is at best lukewarm, and currently, there's every day you'll see something in about how we need to censor the internet for our own good in not just Russia, not just China, but in the US. And, there's articles in, Sulzberger's paper, the New York Times, by the way, is owned by a family. It's not like some disembodied voice. The Sulzberger family owns it. So in Sulzberger's paper, there's articles like free speech is killing us, or, free speech is bad. And so you see this kind of concerted attack on free speech and free markets in the former countries that used to champion it. And so then you need kind of a different way of talking about what that global champion is. And I think that's going to be BTC. If there's a country like El Salvador or maybe South Korea now, or places within the US like Miami and Wyoming and Colorado and Texas and so on, where it is legal and protected to hold Bitcoin, one of the things I'd like to see over the months and years to come are anti-seizure laws. So to anticipate that it's quite possible that a desperate state tries something like Executive Order 6102, or just tries to seize the money to push a button to win. And that becomes, first of all, prima facie illegal, just like a gun seizure would be prima facie illegal. And you call it out before it happens, and you enumerate various ways that it might be done where it's not called a seizure, right? Because usually it's always like the Heroes Act or the Patriot Act or something like that. And it's always like wrapped in some gift wrapping, for children or for, to stop terrorism or something. And so getting ahead of those seizure bills, I think within the US, it's possible because, you already have states going their own way on immigration policy with sanctuary cities, or on gun laws, or on drug laws, with medical marijuana or abortion or, gay marriage, all these other things. There's been, over the last couple of decades, an increasing peeling away of states going in this and that direction and simply not enforcing federal law or overriding it or what have you. And I think that's going to be what's going to happen inside the US. And then similarly, outside the US, lots of poor countries potentially will just start stockpiling BTC because that is actually the asset they can trust that's not going to just get zipped out of their account by the US or by China in the event of some political instability. And, that's why Germany actually, after the financial crisis, they're an ally of the US, but they repatriated their gold to the Bundesbank, if you're aware of that, right? They actually literally went and moved tons and tons of physical gold. And, you can compare that to moving the same amount with a Bitcoin transaction is way more expensive. And they did it because, that's the whole point of a gold reserve. It's like, it's something where when the chips are down, you don't want to have a counterparty risk. So I do think that it's going to happen, but things are going to be super messy. And we just need to advocate for it.
Balaji, I'm really glad that you started hitting on this kind of political football as well as game theory when it comes to countries playing and adopting with or making decisions about Bitcoin. Adam, I want to give you an opportunity to reflect on that topic as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think basically, posturing aside that ultimately the market wins. And so, you see it in Germany, for example, right? They turned off their nuclear power plants. Now they're thinking about reopening them. Why is that? Well, economic reality is pointing out that that was a bad idea. And, globally with Bitcoin, as it continues to get adoption, and as countries that take more forward-looking innovation-friendly policies, they will just start to win economically. So, there's this unfortunate phrase that some Bitcoiners use, the have fun staying poor. Of course, that's not a kind thing to say, because being short of resources is a problem, right? But in other words, if countries want to take retrograde steps and not adopt technology advantages, they ultimately will lose on a global financial playing field. And we've seen Bitcoin, because it's decentralized and free market based, I mean, truly free market based, unlike most of today's markets, it's very resilient and adaptive. So, China banned Bitcoin mining. I mean, they banned Bitcoin lots and lots of times, and nothing ever really happened. But finally, they actually did put in place a strong enough ban that some mining went underground, gray market, and like a big chunk of it left the country. And Bitcoin wasn't affected. That was to the net profit.
It was I mean, like mining did take a big hit, but it recovered pretty quickly. And that was like,
well,
so
right.
you're right that basically like transactions slowed down a little bit, but that was China taking a huge swing at the bat. And basically, no other state is probably going to be quite as organized as that, at least at the technical level.
Well, I mean, right. So
I broadly agree with you. I just wanted to add that it was a big drop in mining, but go ahead.
Right. But I mean, as a large scale miner, like for me personally and for Blockstream, that was net profitable, right? So basically all they did is they
push profits to others,
sent their profits to other people. So that was my kind of macro point, is that, if you want to do retrograde steps, you will have funds staying poor doing it, and you'll just give money to other people. And because there's capital reallocation, wealth reallocation implied in doing that, it's kind of self-correcting. People don't, fundamentally don't want to be poor, and they will eventually be forced, to adopt the Bitcoin standard earlier or later. There's another fun phrase, which is everybody buys Bitcoin at the price they deserve it, which is just saying that, if you have a particularly stubborn view that, oh, this is not going to go anywhere, or, only government should print money, or something like that, the market is happy to teach you a lesson ultimately. So I think it's just a free market view that, people view governments as, determining the destiny of the world. But firstly, philosophically, I disagree with that. Governments are made up of public servants, so they work for us. And if they take policies that are not in our interests, then we should vote against it, or we should leave, which is something Balaji's talked about at length, like exit, like leave the country, find somewhere with economic policies and other policies that match your interests. But my point is that governments themselves are fundamentally not immune to economic shifts. So, if there were a country, and I don't suppose this happened particularly, but when oil was becoming, invention of the internal combustion engine, discovery of, which arose from the discovery of oil as an energy source, gasoline, diesel, and so forth. If there was a country that was sitting on a massive oil reserve that took a dislike, no, we don't, as a policy, we don't like oil, we disagree, we're going to burn wood or something, steam engines. For some reason, they would have eventually started mining it, because just the economic realities would have caught up with them. So of course, we're in the early stages of Bitcoin and energy-driven money reserves, but that same economic pressure is there. So they can avoid it for a while, they can print money, but as they see other countries getting prosperous by fostering that or making use of low-cost energy reserves, they'll change. So I just think there's a kind of internet physics or gravity that's unavoidable, and the market wins. And so governments have the illusion that they're setting the destiny of the planet, but they don't. Technology and the free market does.
I agree with a lot of what Adam just said. I would add two addenda, not even really disagreeing on exit. The way I kind of think about that is it is about, for example, being able to leave the country and emigrate and so on. But at the most meta sense, it's about choice and alternatives. It's about, an alternative to every monopoly. It's about the ability to technologically innovate. It's about a choice other than a binary that's put in front of you, or the choice to make no choice. And there's this famous book, Exit, Voice, and Loyalty, that kind of talks about the balance between those three forces, when there's an issue to solve. So the reason I just want to say that is sometimes exit can be caricatured as, oh, it's like disloyal people who are just like leaving, et cetera. No, well, actually, it's a way of putting a multiplier. You might vote and express your democratic voice, but if that's not sufficient or you're ignored, well, you have your backup plan, your parachute, which is exit. And, that can be within a company, like, you give some feedback to the CEO or through a customer service ticket, and it doesn't work. Okay, take your business elsewhere, right? Open source project, you file an issue. Okay, it doesn't work. Maybe you try to solve it yourself. That doesn't work. Okay, fine, go to another project, right? So it's just a meta thing where it's a backup plan. And I just wanted to mention that because sometimes not at all. Adam did not caricature it, but other people sometimes do. And the other thing on have fun staying poor. So that's Udi's coinage. And, the way I think about that is personally, like like my sort of philosophy is win and help win. I actually think you want positive sum alignment. That's actually why we want to try to convince people to get into BTC. I do think that is funny in the limited specific circumstance where it's, deployed against, nasty or disrespectful no coiners who are like, you stupid crypto bro, blah, blah, all right, then fine, like they pull a knife, you pull a gun, basically, right? Or just proportional retaliation, basically. So in that circumstance, it is funny. But as a general thing, I think win and help win is a much better message because it can ricochet outside of the community, and those folks who are trying to bait, Bitcoin people will be like, see, they're bad or whatever. And you just kind of don't want to give them the ammo for that. It's situational, of course, right? So that's my thought on, HFSP.
Yeah, I mean,